BBC2 in the West. Tonight's Brief Glory looks at the changing fortunes of Bristol City docks. Passing trade.
BBC Radio Bristol.
This is Roger Bennett. The time's coming up to 9 o'clock, and in Bristol the Cumberland Basin Bridge is about to swing for shipping, so please avoid the route if you can. In fact, there are going to be 3 bridge swings in succession, so there are bound to be long delays for people coming in from the Long Ashton Bypass, Winterstoke Road, Portway and so on. Weather news in a moment.
Johnny was a shoemaker, and dearly he loved me. My Johnny was a shoemaker, but now he's gone to sea, with pitch and tar to soil his hands, and to sail across the sea, stormy sea, and sail across the stormy sea. Someday he'll be a captain bold, with a brave and a gallant crew. Someday he'll be a captain bold, with a sword and spyglass too. And when he has a gallant captain's sword, he'll come home and marry me, marry me. He'll come home and marry me.
For centuries, Bristolians have shared their city with ships and seafarers, a way of life governed by time and tide, which wait for neither man nor motorist. Once, Bristol was a city of merchant ships tied up in the docks. Now the trade has moved 6 miles downriver to Avonmouth. Only 3 working boats, sand dredgers, still pass through the lock gates and swing bridges into Bristol. In the late 1960s, the City Council had decided to abandon its docks and build roadways. Yet in the 1990s, today's upwardly mobile citizens must still give way to the last reminders of a maritime history. Down the same brown waters of the Avon sailed John Cabot to his discovery of America in 1497. In 1843, they parted before the noble prow of Brunel's SS Great Britain. But by then, the river had been controlled at last by the system of locks and sluices which created the city docks, known to all Bristolians as the floating harbour. The floating harbour winds its way into Bristol's very heart. Before the Second World War, when coastal trade was flourishing, the docks were full of shipping. The cameraman's vantage point here was on the roof of a granary later destroyed in the Blitz. After the war, new warehouses were built on the same site. Today they house Bristol's Industrial Museum with its row of preserved electric cranes and the unique steam crane of 1878. The assistant curator is Andy King.
It'll lift 35 tonnes, heavy lift crane designed to pick up awkward, hefty loads out of ships and land them onto the railway just behind us. The great thing about it, though, is that with a certain amount of effort, if you couldn't raise steam in time, you can at least unload or load by hand. Because by turning this wheel, I would be perfectly capable of lifting 35 tonnes, albeit panting a bit by the end of it. You certainly need moving things. You need things that work. Things like the steam crane, they're just bits of sculpture, essentially. And they don't mean an awful lot until they start moving, and then they come to life. You've only got to see children's eyes light up when they see the railway operate, and not a few dads' eyes light up as well, of course. We get 150,000 visitors a year to this museum, We get a lot of passing trade, people who don't realise, Bristolians even, who don't realise that Bristol has an industrial museum until they see it. Certainly a part of Bristol ought to be retained looking as it used to, and I can't think of a better place. There isn't very much left these days, but certainly this last bit of improvement to the city docks is probably the best memorial, if you like, that the trade of the city docks could have.
In the 1970s, the city slowly began to wake up to what it could be losing. Industrial history, which for Bristol docks was largely water under the bridge, was becoming respectable. The City Council saw the recreational potential of its run-down docks, its historic harbour. But for the last of its workaday traffic, the signs were not so good.
Call it historic harbour as many times as you like. Basically, it's still a dock designed for unloading and loading ships. There's still the sand trade, not the world's most romantic boat maybe, but still a reasonable sized ship coming in and moving in the dock. And they're very important not only to the finances of it all, they contribute a fair amount to the upkeep of the dock, but to the look of the place. People wonder where the big ships are. It's all very well looking around at all the Tupperware boats in here, but you want real things. They're being told it's a historic harbour. They're being told it's the city docks. They expect to see things that belong in the dock. The way things seem to be going, there won't be anything historic left in the harbour at all. There'll be large statues of Cabot kicking around the place, but nothing real. And people do know the difference between real things and recreated things. And they appreciate the sort of feel, smell, the whole aura of realism that you get in an area like this. The problem is that people don't particularly like mess and noise outside their houses. Some people do. I know a number of people who've moved into houses, for instance, opposite the sand yard, because they enjoy being able to look out of their front room at other people working. It's one of people's favourite occupations, is watching other people at work.
And no better example of hard work exists than the Harry Brown, a 700-ton suction dredger bearing the name of an old established Bristol maritime family and built in the city dock in 1962. From 1820 to 1976, the firm of Charles Hill and Sons built ships here at the Albion dock. Back in 1843, Brunel's iron ship Great Britain was built on this site, but it was small ships like the Harry Brown which were Hill's speciality. In the 1970s, the City Council decided to remove the surviving industries from its dock, and Hill's were forced to close. Their last ship was the Miranda Guinness, designed to carry Ireland's best-known export across the Irish Sea. Hill's yard was then redeveloped as a marina, but ship, or at least boat building, still survives at David Abel's yard.
We decided that we did need a special purpose workshop with waterside access, and at the time what boatyards were seemed very expensive. Of course they're all flats and houses now and seem very cheap, but this basically was the only site that fitted our bills and was within our price range. Our original approach to the council was to do up one of the old Charles Hill sheds, but the council at that time decided that they were going to flatten everything first and then decide what to do with it afterwards. This is our 42nd boat, all to our own designs, and all working boats of various sorts, tugs, fishing boats, building a sound commercial business. The fact that it also happens to carry on a long, old-established tradition is an added satisfaction to seeing a boat that you've designed and built, put in the water and working well.
Once, the chairman's wife did the honours with champagne and ceremony. Now a crane does the job with neither. But some of the old magic lingers on.
The magic in it is basically all hidden. The magic is, was the design right? Is the weight and the centre of gravity where you've calculated them to be? And really, until you put them in the water, it's so much theory. And if you've got it long on paper, the boat will always be not very good.
Hill's ships were good enough. It was politics that sank them in the end. But not everything changes. A Victorian workshop complex still survives here at the Underfall Yard. It's in the safe hands of David Neal.
We have here the engineering base for the floating harbour. That comprises mechanical workshops, electrical, shipwright's shop, and also the blacksmith's shop, used for maintaining the harbour. Lastly, we have the hydraulic engine house, which is, if you like, the power station for the docks installation. Water is pumped through a system of buried hydraulic mains at very high pressure to power various items of equipment, lock gate machinery, sluice actuators, swing bridge machinery, that sort of thing. The future of the city docks has been in doubt, and really as a result of uncertainty, the system has remained. In some instances, we're dealing with equipment which has never worked properly since the day it was installed. I'm quite sure the hydraulic machinery on the lock gates was really not intended to be used in the sort of horizontal mode that it is, and that has created all sorts of problems which we're still trying to overcome. If you like, we're dealing with sort of 19th century teething problems. It's very interesting. There has been talk for a number of years about scheduling Underfall Yard as an ancient monument. It has now been scheduled. In effect, we are custodians of something rather on a par with Stonehenge. But really, I think it just makes one think a bit more about what is being done and perhaps get organised a bit better. I think it's helped, really.
About half the cost of dock maintenance is met by sand dredgers like the Harry Brown. Her skipper is Mervyn Hardwich.
She's purpose-built ship as a sand dredger, and she's a really good one. I mean, the fact that she just keeps going day in and day out proves it. Of course, she's getting old now. I mean, things are starting to go wrong now, but after 27 years, they're entitled to. I remember all the boats that used to come in, the different boats. You felt as though it was living, and it was a good thing. It's better to have a dock working than a dock just laying doing nothing. Where you've got houses now right across from us, I mean, that was timber yards. So you can't go back, can you? You just got to make sure you get it right first time.
The past is important. Everyone measures the present by what's gone before. Having real ships adds so much to the life of the harbour. Gives the tired executive peering out of his office window or his yuppie flat window something to relieve his stress with by seeing these things. The Harry Brown is a marvellous ship. She's very well liked by everyone who sees her, except possibly the motorists who get held up on their way to work in the morning as the bridge swings to let her out. A process that takes all of 3 minutes.
When you're driving along, you get held up, you say, oh, bloody hell. Bridge again, etc. Yeah. I think they only know the name of the Harry Brown. We've been here so long, just if we get held up by the bridge, they say, that's your blinking ship again. And we've never been nowhere near there quite often, like, you know. It's, I think the Brown is well known in Bristol. And I've always said it's always friendly.
Psychologically, it's very comforting to know that the installations we are operating and maintaining are being used for their rightful purpose. I mean, I've witnessed the sort of rundown of the old commercial operation, and that was very sad in a way, but one felt that that was inevitable. Really, it's been delightful to sort of witness a rebirth of the place, yet with some commercial backing to it.
Most of them was coasters that came around here. You had the Scotch boats, the Dan boats, The stream boats used to bring in timber, Bristol Steam Navigation, I mean, with the general cargo. Then you had the wine boats, that was the sherries, etc. Yeah, no, they all had their regular runs, you could say, which day they were coming virtually and which day they were going on. It wasn't like it is now, you can come up there all on your lonesome. We had tugs with maybe 3 or 4 barges going both ways, and all the shipping going both ways. You had to really be on the ball in those days.
In 1970, a ship was towed under Brunel's Clifton Suspension Bridge that was to help turn the tide for Bristol docks. The hulk of his pioneer iron ship, the Great Britain, returning to its birthplace for restoration after 84 years rusting away in the Falklands. Its epic journey home captured the imagination of the world. With such a star on its hands, the City Council was forced to accept that the floating harbour could not, after all, become part of a brave new world of roads and high-rise buildings.
There were a lot of people at the time who felt that the floating harbour really had outlived its uses, and that the best thing to do was to use it as a means to facilitate complete rebuilding of the centre. The ship coming back was very awkward from that point of view, because putting her back in this dock here and making quite clear that she's never going to sail again makes a fixed point which is difficult to avoid. And what has happened in the years since then has really been a reversal of that original trend. The dockside, which was a rather sort of unpleasant, unattractive place, has gradually been transformed. The process is not complete, but most of it is now much more attractive, and I'm glad to say is much more being used by the people of Bristol and the surrounding area. And what we've got down here, the Great Britain, is the remains of Bristol's last working shipyard. In it happens to be one of the most remarkable ships, if not the most remarkable ship that Bristol ever built. That's a very fortunate coincidence, which we want to hang on to like mad. No port is complete without the people and the skills and crafts which make it a viable proposition. We're lucky in having a firm of shipwrights which continues the tradition from Charles Hill's shipyard. We hope that by hook or by crook we can keep that going for a few generations yet. You've got to display it muck and all, and this is a jolly important part of any kind of display which aims to show people how their forebears built the place and what they went through in the process.
Having delayed the development of its docks, Bristol found it was now sitting on a gold mine. As the developers moved in and the warehouses came down, a new kind of dockside crane went up, helping to build homes and offices for a new kind of city dweller.
All these docks, all around the country, are very much sought after. It seems that the developers will do something to the dock as a loss leader to get planning permission, basically. That perhaps is a little bit cynical, but to an outsider that's how it appears. And you've got a real danger of destroying the thing that you were attracted to in the first place. If you decide that you want to live on the dockside, presumably you've come because it's a dockside, and it's therefore daft then to develop it into something which is unrelated to what you were attracted to in the first place.
One gets the impression that some people have bought houses not knowing what to expect. If it is a dock, then there are bound to be movements on the tide at any time of the day or night, and one must expect quite a bit of exposure to various public events, like the powerboat race, for example.
Once a year, the boats are cleared from their moorings to make room for the thrills and spills of a waterborne Grand Prix.
Everybody goes on about the 1 or 2 days in the year when the docks are busy. If you work here 6 days a week, you know that in fact the dock itself is empty for most of the time, that nobody is here for the winter 6 months. Even in the summer, there aren't many people here during the week. Everybody hangs out with the flags for the powerboat race, the city regatta, but basically there's virtually nothing happens in the dock, and the dock itself really needs some serious thought and a good policy of what to do with it.
The council's not doing a bad job. They really are making it look nice. I mean, I bring my grandchildren down the docks because now there's things to do and things to see. It's not a working dock anymore, but they brought all the leisure activities in, and it really is nice to come walking around there.
You can make it too pretty and perhaps too upmarket as well. This has got to be a place which serves and appeals to the whole community and not just a section of it. It's always been a rather gritty place. I think grittiness has a great place in people understanding the past, and I think we ought to try and hold on to something of that without making it unattractive.
The City Council invited Bristolians to have their say in planning the final major redevelopment of the docks, but only after they'd pronounced sentence of death on some important industrial landmarks to make way for their greatest prize so far, a new national headquarters for Lloyd's Bank. Historic harbours need historic ships, which can create their own problems.
People somehow seem to think that you can put a boat in the water and it will look nice forever. They don't. After a year, 2 years, you need to get them out, you need to do work on them, and that work creates mess. The sort of thing that you need in a dock. You need chippings and sawdust, and you need shavings, you need people actually clouting things.
For example, master craftsman, boat builder, and the last tenant of one of the now demolished transit sheds, John Woolley.
There is the Industrial Museum with the dockside cranes, but these sheds had cranes running on their upper story. So in their heyday, the driver could look down into the hold of the ship from his cab and see what he was loading and unloading and haul it out and land it either onto the quay or onto the staging or, in fact, onto the top story. I think that the feeling of the docks, which until now has been very real, with railway lines, granite sets and cobbles, the very big bollards on the quayside, the warping drums where the trains used to be shunted up and down to receive the cargo. All these things add up to a real dock area. And if we let the outer world come right to the water's edge, then I am fearful for the future, which, if you look round, is not really that wonderful. And this little bit where we're standing is perhaps one of the most genuine dock areas that there are.
The great mistake, I believe, is to try and make city centres to a standard pattern. Bristol has to be Bristol. It has to show what sort of a city it is and has been over the years, and it's got to display a character which is all its own. And this harbour is an awfully important part of that.
There aren't really any other cities which have a dock literally in the heart of the city.
The city dock is the jewel in the crown when it comes to civic amenity and tourist attraction, and there is a livelihood for us in that direction.
Adding to the atmosphere with its fleet of sailing ships is Square Sail, a company specialising in film work and business promotion, while also providing sail training for its crews and a fine spectacle for visitors to the docks. And on a windy night, out on the Severn estuary, the humble sand dredger Harry Brown keeps the last of Bristol's seafaring tradition alive.
Well, we go down onto specified patches of sand, which we got licenses for. The pipe goes down onto the bottom of the sea, and we pump it up through, and then when it's finished, then we drain the water is left in with the sand, we drain that out so we have a dry sand when we come up. If the ship stays still, then it wouldn't take us very long. We'd probably load the ship in about an hour and 20 minutes.
Stop the pump, and then you carry on, and I'll do the deck here and the rest of it.
Put on the board over now, lads.
Right.
When the sailor left the harbour, he had only one thing to think about, and that was the job on the ship at sea, and it's still to some extent true today. And I think that generated a sort of intensity of feeling in people who applied their trade at sea, which spills over into the general consciousness of maritime affairs.
Ships certainly do matter to the British. Perhaps it's traditionally been part of the British way of life. I mean, the merchant navy has been an institution, hasn't it? I'm sure most people regret the sort of rundown of the merchant fleet very much. And simply to watch ships is very satisfying, I think. And I think Bristolians like to see ships at the city centre. It's a maritime city. I mean, that's our whole history, isn't it?
So walk around, for we're rolling homeward. Heave me boys together. The old bully ship is a lying windward. Heave me boys away. Oh, we're taut and trim and the winds are blowing. Snog up aloft and the ships are going. Heave her or we'll strand her, and the old ships are rolling home.
Well, the Bristol Channel's got a very big tide race because it's the second highest rise and fall in the world. It can rise and fall as much as 40 feet, which a lot of people don't know. Now, the tide's got to run fast accordingly, and the average run of the tide is about 5 knots, and in some places 8 knots. When we come up the river on a spring tide, we can't stop. I mean, it's not a case of saying, oh, woo, woo, you're just committed once you enter the river, and that's it, you've got to keep going. Otherwise you can't steer, and the ship starts to swing to the tide then.
A little ship like the Harry Brown acquires, with the passing of time, attributes like faithfulness. You can rely on the Harry Brown. I don't know how many of Bristol's buildings owe part of their substance to the Harry Brown, but it must be an amazing number throughout Bristol and the West that have actually got part of Harry Brown's spoils incorporated into their structures.
You could say that a great heap of sand placed at the entrance to the city isn't its best advertisement. But, you know, what do you want to make this place look like? Do you want to make it look like a playground, or try and keep it like a working harbour?
Harry Brown's quite special. If we ever get a larger ship as a museum, then Harry Brown is certainly on the list of potential acquisitions. But being a sand dredger, spending its time shifting one of the best corrosives known to man, I can't see her lasting long enough to actually be in a fit state to be taken on by the museum. But a nice ship.
How long's a piece of string? I mean, as long as the council lets us, I assume that the company will stay here. I mean, I can't answer for the company, but I just assume they will. If any time the council's not happy, then we won't be here anymore. If it's out the way like we are down here, it helps pay the rates, doesn't it? And anything else pays for the leisure activities. Can't be bad.